Okay, up until now, we've been working with uh, Macs using entirely clock time, milliseconds, real time, however you want to refer to it. But that's been our timing argument for the Metro. It's been our duration argument for make note. Anything we've been dealing with, we've been thinking of time in milliseconds. Max allows us to work with different time formats, um, including musical time, which is expressed in durational note values like quarter note, eighth note, triplet eighth note, whole note. But we need to use some more objects to do that, and a different way of specifying those durations or time in our objects. So I'm starting with my basic patch, a Metro patch that plays an object, um, or plays a note. I have patch change capability through the program out, and I have volume control going to control out 7. Continuous controller 7 is generally, in general MIDI is your volume control. So just attach a slider to that, gives me control over the overall volume on MIDI channel 1 of the general MIDI synth that's built into the Apple operating system. And I have a basic patch. So to use note values as time, I have to be running the transport. Transport's just like what you would see in a digital audio workstation or other software that uses it. You're going to find it in the extras menu. Your extras menu is not going to have as many things because I have added more things to Max for my version. And so you're looking for global transport. It's going to open up. It's always going to float on top of your window no matter where you click. And it is very familiar. It expresses things in beats and units per beat for a time signature. So 4/4, a tempo. It has bars, beats, and units, so how many clock ticks per beat. 480 is the standard that it's using. And you can start it, and it's running through, and it's updating every 120 units or every 16th note as it shows you. And it shows you in real time down here. Um, and it's showing you the pulse visually. You can tap the tempo, and it'll match whatever you're tapping. Or you can type in your tempo back. So that's all very familiar. It's actually, if I turn it off and hit rewind, it is actually a patcher. It is a sub-patcher. Uh, so that's why all the interface units look like Max objects you're familiar with, like number boxes. That's a floating point number box. The activate is a little bit different button because it's not quite a bang, but that's a bang. And rewind or tap would be messages that you could use. And there's a little button that'll open up a help patch. So it's all very familiar and something that you've gone through. Now, because it's actually um, a patcher, we can refer to it with, instead of with a global transport, we can actually add an object. So unlike the patch, I'm adding the transport object, which starts out with 2 inlets and a whole bunch of outlets. 9 outlets. And so what we can work with, it is looking for a toggle to control it, much like a metronome. If I lock the patch and turn the toggle on, you see that the transport object in my Max patch and the global transport window are linked. They are the same thing. If I stop, I can start the transport from here, and you can't see that yet because I need to hook up a few more things. So let's hook up a few more things. Unlock the patch. I'll rewind my transport. And you can see that it'll output bars, beats, and units in the first 3. So let's add some number boxes. And it wasn't letting me add a number box because that was the active window. When I was typing my I wasn't getting anything new. If I tap back here on my, click back here on my transport, my canvas, then I can get more boxes. So now I'm going to spread this object out so that it's a little bit easier to see the outlets and I can put things together. So bars, beats, units, and the transport will report its location in bars, beats, and units if you send it a bang message. So I can put a button over here, connect to the transport, start the transport, which starts over here, and whenever I click on the button, that bang message outputs the current location of the transport. It doesn't keep running on its own, but I'll stop it up here. I'll stop it here, start it here, and now I'm up to bar 10, and you can see if I send a bang, it outputs matching where we are in the global transport. So even though the toggle isn't on, I clicked on to activate the transport in the global transport window, so this object is moving, updating. Transport's active. It's still on because sending a 1 to transport just turns it on. It was already on. I can turn it off from here now if I click off. So basic control. And I can rewind from here. I can also rewind using this right inlet. I can set the transport position in ticks. And the simplest way to rewind is to send a message of 0. I'll use the floating point value because ticks can be floating point. And a little comment to remind myself that that's the rewind. And lock the patch, click on it. And the transport has rewound. This doesn't update because no bang has been sent within this patch. But if I start, it starts back at 1. Rewinding it again. So that's just a way of doing all the controls that I have up here. One more that I haven't done is tempo. And this brings up some new ways to interact with objects and a new object itself. I'm going to start with the, let's start with the normal way we've been doing things. So I'm still going to use an integer for tempo, even though tempo can be fractional. It could be a floating point number. I'm going to do this as an integer number box. I'm going to type a message, and that message is going to be tempo, which is an attribute of the transport, and $1. So if this message, which is going to be replaced, the $1 is going to be replaced by whatever number comes in. If tempo and a number is sent to transport in the left inlet, the transport will change its tempo. We'll be able to see it reflected here whenever I do that. So I'm going to start. Let's put a new tempo in of 90, hit enter, and now my tempo changes to 90. As I move it up slowly, you'll see it goes up slowly there, or down, to whatever I want to do. So again, these things are linked. This is one way. So I'm using the message, which lays out the attribute, and the argument that goes with the attribute is the actual tempo. There is another way of doing this. And this other way is called using an attribute inspector, which is a combination of the attribute and a number box, and it communicates in two directions. So easiest way to create an attribute inspector is to go unlock the patch, select the object, and go into its inspector. Go into its reference down here. And you'll see it takes certain messages, has attributes, and it has a related object so you can see. So one of the attributes of the transport is the tempo. I'm going to drag this from the reference pane into my patch, and it creates an attribute inspector object. The ATTRUI is the actual name of the object. I'm going to put it up here. and just doing some segmented patch chords. I'm going to hook the output of the attribute inspector to the input of transport. And when I let go, you'll notice something that's a little bit different in Max when you use the attribute inspector. The tempo, first off it highlighted, it was grayed out beforehand. Now it highlighted, and it showed me the actual tempo that matches what's been sent in through the tempo message, what's showing in the global transport. So we're used to data, messages, flowing out outlets, bottoms of objects, into inlets at the top of objects. Attribute inspectors are really two-way communications. When you hook up an attribute inspector to an object, it will send the value of that attribute to the inspector, and that's what's going from the input to the output. If I lock the patch and change the value in the attribute inspector, it sends it to the transport. Now it doesn't update over here, but it sends tempo 100 to the transport. I see that it's changed in the global transport window, and that's a really useful device because it's giving me what the thing does and a way to change it. I can, if I unlock, there are inlets. I can send a message in, so I can, if I wanted to, send the number here. That'll update the tempo attribute. That'll send to transport, and that will display in the global transport window. So a lot going on over here. Probably most of the time, I'll leave out the message and use the attribute inspector. And remember, just to go over this again, if I delete this, I was in the object, in its reference window, and I found the attribute, dragged it to the patcher, and then connected to the left inlet, and that forms a communication link in both directions. Then I also used a number in, so if I wanted control. And that's the basics of this patch. So I'm going to follow up with the next video to show you now how to use the transport to control the metronome or the metro object, and how to use musical time as we do this. So this is the setup. Over here now we're actually going to get into durational value changes.